Only one wins. Gamitas is a world on the edge of creation itself. It's the dimension of souls located somewhere beyond space and outside of time and home to 1.1 trillion life forms, none of whom were meant to stay there. How do I know all this? We are born knowing. It is our birthright. Who are we? We are the many, and we exist to find the one. It is all we know. It is all we yearn for. The one is all there is. For only when we find the one can we find our true selves, our identity. The many are not given names, not until we complete the gauntlet. The many are born knowing this. The many lie dormant. But when we wake, we face the gauntlet, a series of challenges, tests, and obstacles. Those that fail will be enveloped by the darkness and cease to exist. But for the one that makes it to the great beyond, it is said that they will find the one and their true purpose. Every single one of us is born wanting to find the one. It's all we crave and all we wish for. None of us even know what it will be, but we do not need to know. It's not easy to explain or to understand what Gamitas is. It is less of a place and more of a state of consciousness. Gamitas is all things, light and dark, and up and down, and hot and cold. It is a quantum foam out of which all the universe is born. But if the many are sure of anything, it is that Gamitas is not our home, and it is not our destiny to remain there. I couldn't tell how long I'd been awake for. Understanding time is difficult for the many. An hour, a second, several days. I couldn't explain my mental grasp of these chronological terms. I was surrounded by inky blackness, and yet I couldn't still see. I hung suspended in the middle of it, the darkness churning around me. I looked down at my body. I had no body. My form was ever-changing, electric blue, like some sort of plasma. It shifted and rippled and danced ethereally, not quite liquid, not quite gas. Then suddenly, I knew others were coming. I turned around. A great wave was rolling toward me. And then I realized that it wasn't a wave, it was a collective. A great wall of energy comprised of hundreds of millions of me, of us, the many. They were all around me. One of us, they chanted at me. One of us. I found that the words simply left me without conscious thought. Which one? The many chanted. I am 776-998-416. The number sprang from me as if I had been saying it for my whole existence. It was impossible knowledge, unthinkable knowledge, and yet I knew it was true. We are awoken, the many chanted. The gauntlet is here. I turned back around, suspended in the thick black ether. There it was. The inky blackness before us was swirling, like a jet black maelstrom, opening up a vast tunnel in the darkness. I knew that if we went through it, the gauntlet would begin. I somehow knew that we all knew it. Like a great wave, we moved as one, spreading light through the darkness as we moved into the tunnel. We had no knowledge of what awaited us. We had no fear. We could feel it, the one, and it awaited us, called to us, and we had to answer. Suddenly, the passage began to narrow, becoming a funnel-like tube. The many began to straighten out into a single file to accommodate for the space. Suddenly, the tube snapped shut at one end, as if a section of it had suddenly contracted in on itself. Thousands of us were killed in that instance. I sensed it. I felt it. They were crushed against each other and enveloped by the darkness. I could feel it too. It was out there struggling to crush us. I felt a great rush of energy move through my foam, a rush that made me feel hectic and frantic. I began to move faster, desperate to escape the crushing oblivion. And then suddenly I had a word for the energy: panic. All around me, others were moving as fast as they could, as eager as I was to escape their fate. The passageway began to get narrow and narrower and narrower. I squeezed through a tiny gap that seemed impossible to get through, but didn't stop or look back. If I had, I would have seen more of the many getting trapped in the receding passageway. And then the jaws of the beast snapped shut on them. They were gone. It was dark again, pitch black. I couldn't see, and yet I still could. I turned around. More than half of the many had been killed, and yet none of us stopped or paused to mourn or spare a thought. Our purpose was to continue. We had to. Suddenly, I stopped in my tracks. My instinct. I couldn't explain how, but I knew that there was something waiting, some kind of wall in the darkness. I reached out and felt it, malleable, but apparently impregnable, some kind of transparent barrier. The others had begun to feel it too. They piled up against the barrier, pushing and shoving, attempting to force their way through. The barrier bent under the force but did not break. They were wrong. I knew that wasn't the way. Again, I reached out to the barrier and placed my electric blue body against it. I concentrated and felt the power inside me, crackling and bubbling to a boil. Suddenly, I felt the barrier begin to give way, as if it were wilting under the heat from the energy in my form. Yes, definitely wilting. It relaxed and contracted and turned from solid to liquid as it gave way, and then suddenly I had the word for it. The barrier melted. I pushed my way through the perforation left in the barrier and wriggled free. I felt a second wave of rushing inside me, but different from the first time. The first time I had felt panic. This was different. I felt elation. I was happy. The many had noticed what I had done high above them, and suddenly they swarmed for the hole I had left. They collided into each other as they attempted to force their way through the barrier, and I knew that they would kill each other in the attempt. Sure enough, they began to crush each other. Millions of us, all desperately trying to get through a tiny gap in the barrier. I didn't stop to look or stop to help. It was against my nature to help or to care at all. The gauntlet was all that mattered. The passage suddenly began to pitch upward. I sensed a beacon of power from above me. I looked, and there it was, high above me in the distance. It hung suspended in the darkness, pulsing and ebbing with power. I felt a huge strain on my body, almost like there was some kind of force pulling me downward. It became harder and harder to move as the passageway that I was following pitched higher and higher until I was moving vertically. I could feel the strain in my very being. I couldn't explain the feeling, but it was bad. It was uncontrollable. It was pain. I gave it all I had, but I began to slow. Every movement was painful. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a flash of blue. One of us. I hadn't been the only one to make it past the barrier. There were two of us left. Just two. But only one can make it. I was slowing, every movement sending jolts of pain through my body as I struggled to make a vertical ascension. But the other was moving, strong and powerfully, holding a true course as it moved upward toward the one. I didn't think, I didn't plan, I simply acted. I threw my body sideways. I do not know what made me do it. I collided right into the other, and he was knocked headlong into the darkness. I saw it envelop him, saw his bright blue energy signature, swallowed whole. He was gone. I harnessed every last scrap of energy I had left and continued on my course upward. I was 20 feet from the one, 10 feet, 5. As I got closer, I realized that the one was not what I had first thought. It resembled a funny-looking cocoon of some sort. Just as it seemed I was close enough to touch it, the world went dark. Not dark like before. This was real dark. I couldn't see. I couldn't move. I was surrounded, engulfed in some kind of liquid. I felt heavy. How long had I been there? Where was the one? I was confused. Slowly, dazedly, I looked down at my body, expecting to see the bluish blue of my plasma-like form. I was wrong. The bluish hue was gone, replaced by something a lot darker, closer to tan. Two fleshly limbs were wrapped around me. I realized with a start that they were attached to me. A great feeling of despair welled up inside me. Was this it? Was this the end of the gauntlet? I had expected to find what the many yearned for, with every fiber of our existence. I had expected to find my purpose, my true name, my true identity. I had hoped to find myself, but this was all there was, a dark abyss. I became suddenly aware that I had been trapped in the liquid for a lot longer than it seemed. I couldn't say how long. Was this time? Time was difficult. Suddenly I felt something jerk at my body. I didn't like it. Bright lights suddenly began to fill the dark cavern, and then without warning I felt the liquid draining away. I suddenly heard a terrible sound, and the liquid began to wash me away. Once again panic welled up inside me. I was being pulled with force. I struggled, but it was no use. I was being pulled towards a terrible screeching sound that filled my ears. With a sudden shock, I realized that I was making the screeching sound. It seemed appropriate. I was experiencing multiple things at the same time. I was in pain. I was distressed. I was confused. Somehow I knew that screeching noise was an amalgamation of everything I was feeling. I heard a strange voice from high above me in the light. Darling, it's a boy. And then, once again, the world went black. When I awoke, I felt different. I was lying on my back, wrapped in something soft and white. I could see. The world around me was dark, was black, and was no abyss. It was a brilliant splash of color, and smells, and swirling noise. I couldn't take it all in. I opened my eyes wildly and simply. There was a face smiling down at me, a face lined with tiredness. I instantly felt a warm rush of affection. I couldn't explain it, but I felt a connection to this face. Hello, Oran, the face said warmly. And with those two words, my mind exploded. Glorious new knowledge flooded into my mind. Knowledge that I knew I would not remember when next I awoke. I tried with all my might to speak, to form words, but try as I might, my mouth would not obey me. The one was real. The great beyond was real. I was here. I was the one. I thought that my journey was over, but my journey was just beginning. I was no longer one of the men. I was my own person. I'd wished to know my true name, to know my true self, and to know my true destiny. My name is Oran. My name means light. I am a human being, and my destiny is whatever I make it, and I will make it in the name's